You know the deal. We're going through all the NFL. And if you're a winner this week, you know what you're getting. You're getting shit. That was
Woo! It's the boy, Bubba, Lutz coming through. Hella clutch, flawless, can't be touched. It's your boy, Bubba, Lutz. Yeah, I need that hot take. I need the truth and everything that is not fake. So tell me who's the...
Welcome back, Bubba Bunch, to another edition of the Bubba Let's Sports Podcast, episode 165. It is winners and losers of the NFL Week 1 2020 season. If you've been through it all with me, if you were here last year, which a lot of you were, you know that winners and losers was a weekly thing. You know, it kind of went away toward the end part of the season, but I always loved doing it. It was always a blast to make. And so I had to bring it back, right? Now we're on YouTube. Now we're better than ever. But still, those small little details are still there, ladies and gentlemen. So, the NFL. And if you're a winner this week, you know what you're getting. You're getting shit. That was... Get a little bit of the bubbly. I was a little ahead of myself. You know, the commands on this thing are really weird. 1 and 2. It's hard to remember. Losers, though. They get the Stephen A. So you don't want to be on that part of the list. You want to have a little bit of the bubbly. Now we have the sound bites. Now you have me face to face. So let's get started, shall we? Before we get into that, though, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. 84 subscribers on the way to 100. We're going to get to 100 by the end of the year. I guarantee it. On Spotify and Apple Podcasts, make sure to follow the podcast. Leave a review. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts if you could, please. And lastly, my boy Irving is doing well, in great spirits, going through his chemo treatment on leukemia. He just had some fundraiser done with his family. They're going to do one with Chick-fil-A. And I will continue to support my boy Irving as much as I can until he gets better. So he has $12,000 out of $20,000 donated and put together for right now. So I'm going to put the link down in the description below. If you want to donate, please do. Any amount will matter. Any amount will help out so much. And once again, Irving, I hope you're doing well. I hope these podcasts just put a smile on your face. And I wish you nothing but the best, man. And please get better and kick cancer's ass. Without further ado, you know what, Irving?
Oh, a little bit of the bubbly.
You deserve a little bit of the bubbly. You deserve it. You really do. Let's start off with the winners, ladies and gentlemen. Winners of the NFL Week 1. Number 1, that's going to get a little bit of the bubbly this week, is going to be Kai Forbath. Now, I know what you're saying. Bubba, he doesn't have a team. He's a free agent kicker. Cowboys let him go. I'm saying that Kai Forbath's stock is going to go up after this week. Let's look at some of the games and some of these kickers that had a rough Week 1. Just last night on Monday Night Football, Titans versus Broncos, Stephen Gostkowski misses 4 kicks, 3 field goals, 1 extra point. He ends up hitting the game winner, though. So he might have a job. I think reports are saying that they're going to go with him in the future despite the struggles. We'll see what happens in Tennessee. They've been struggling with a kicker for the last year and a half. So for right now, Gostkowski has a job, but I think Kai Forbath definitely has a chance of earning his way a spot with the Tennessee Titans. Randy Bullock with the Cincinnati Bengals misses a game-winning field goal to get Joe Burrow his first win as a Cincinnati Bengal. He misses the game winner against the Chargers. It was basically a chip shot, to say the least, and he misses it. He's been with Cincinnati for a long time. He's been in the NFL for a very long time. But Kai Forbath, though, did not miss a kick last year, just saying. And finally, the Cleveland Browns, they have enough worries as it is, but they waive Austin Seibert for Cody Parkey, who they had last year. Decent kicker, not the best. So if I'm looking at these kickers and I'm looking at these teams that are struggling to have a consistent kicking game and a guy that can hit game winners, that can hit in the clutch, really high pressure situations. You look at last year where the Cowboys needed a high pressure kicker. They've been used to it for so many years. With Dan Bailey, they tried to move on to Brett Maher. You know how I feel about him on this podcast. It didn't work out, so Kai comes in, and then they get Greg Zuerlein. And you think there's going to be a competition there in Dallas, but unfortunately Kai doesn't win the job. They go with Greg, who did end up actually missing a 53-yarder this Sunday night. So Kai Forbath is chilling on his couch. You know, he's got enough money as it is. He's been in the league for a very long time. But if you're looking at it, Kai Forbath does have a lot to prove. And I thought the audition with the Cowboys definitely proved so. So guys like Janikowski, guys like Kai Forbath, they've been around the league for a very long time. They can win a job here. And if these struggles continue at the kicking game for not just these three teams that I named, but around the league, you never know when you need a kicker that gets banged up, that gets injured, or just goes on a cold streak. Kai Forbath is definitely getting that stock up for getting a starting job in the NFL. So Kai Forbath, you deserve
Oh, a little bit of the bubbly.
a little bit of the bubbly. Number 2 on the winners list, and I think this is just a W of a winner. The Washington football team defensive line, to be specific. This defensive line had themselves a day in Washington against the Philadelphia Eagles to open up the season. Think about everything that has gone on with the Washington football team over this last year. Getting rid of that name. Getting rid of a lot of the things that didn't work out last year, coaching staff, players, and they basically had to start from scratch. But one consistent that was from last year to this year was that defensive line, and it only got better this year with Chase Young in the first round pick in this year's draft. And boy, did this defensive line put in some work. Philadelphia Eagles came in with some offensive line injuries. Lane Johnson's not there. They're banged up. So what do the defensive line for the Washington football team do? They put up 8 sacks, and that 8th sack actually seals the deal for their win in week 1, overcoming a 7-point deficit, and they get a strip sack on that 8th fumble, or that strip fumble on the 8th sack, to basically win the game, to give Dwayne Haskins the ball, so they can run down the clock. They did look good in that second half, and it's all a part of that defensive line. They put a beating on Carson Wentz. They're showing they're on top of the NFC East for right now. After week 1, they look great. They can make some moves in this NFC East. You think it's the Eagles and the Cowboys, but after their bad performances this week, hell, Washington has a chance to win this division, and especially with that defensive line. I love what they did on the offseason with Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera, we just spoke about Irving. Hopefully he gets through this cancer, this disease, this horrible disease. And, I mean, what a way to start off his recovery, way to start off chemo and the NFL season. He gets a win under his belt. Looks like he has his team disciplined like they haven't been before in previous years. And he's got Riverboat Ron really leading this way in Washington. So I'm really proud of this Washington football team, and what they're doing on defense is going to show dividends throughout the season with this defensive line, with a young cornerback and defensive back secondary. But Jack Del Rio, for me, is already making a difference, and that is a man that is well respected in this league. And the talent that he has on that defensive line, I'm excited to see what they do in Washington. So, Washington football team defensive line, you deserve.
Oh, a little bit of the bubbly.
Sir. Number 3, arms. I mean, it's no way about it. Just arms. Arms. Quarterback arms, to be specific. They looked good on Sunday and Monday. First one, that really looked good to me. And I will say I was wrong about this man. After week 1, he's looking healthy. He's looking good. He doesn't look old. He doesn't look banged up. Big Ben Roethlisberger from Pittsburgh going off against the New York Giants. And personally, I was actually a big fan of what the Giants have done on defense. They got a lot of big names. They look pretty good. They're young in their secondary, but their defensive front can make a difference, especially with Blake Martinez leading that way in that linebacker position. They need some time to grow, though. Joe Judge, I think, is a good coach. Their offense didn't look the best, but I do see some positives coming out of that offense. It's a growing offensive line. Daniel Jones, other than that big mistake in the red zone, I think showed some improvement from last year. He's got to take care of that ball, though. I think that's the biggest thing for him. If he can't take care of that ball, he's not going to be the starter there. Saquon Barkley was negative for most of that game. Big Ben actually outrushed Saquon Barkley. You never see that. Never say that every week. And I don't think you ever will say that ever again. So for Monday night, week 1, we'll take it. But the elbow, coming after last year, we had surgery on it. They actually showed a lot of documentary footage from his recovery on the elbow surgery. It looked painful. It looked rough. And he rehabbed the hell out of that elbow. And I think after seeing that last night, that elbow looks pretty damn good. So the whole arm looks good. And I think Juju will back me up on that. He looks so happy to have Big Ben back. It's really nice to see Steelers kind of come back after a rough start to 2019 and to finish off the 2019 season on a hot note. They had something to prove on Monday night against a very unpredictable New York Giants team. And they looked dominant. They looked really good on defense, on offense, and it's in due part of Big Ben. 229 passing yards with 3 touchdowns. I'm a little bit wrong. It's a long season, so we'll see how he holds up. But in week 1, he has definitely proved me wrong. So Big Ben, your arm looks good. Another arm that looked really good was Aaron Rodgers. RELAX. It's time to relax again in Green Bay. Jordan Love getting the first-round draft pick out of Green Bay. Oh my God, they don't have receivers. What are they going to do? They have Aaron Jones, but maybe it's time to move on from Aaron Rodgers. How about 364 yards passing and 4 touchdowns on that same wide receiver core that he had last year? Devontae Adams killed me in fantasy this week. He had like 41 points. I think he had like 3 touchdowns. Allen Lazard found the end zone. He looked pretty good. Valdez-Scantling, you never know what that guy's kind of hit or miss, but he looked good on Sunday. Aaron Jones didn't really have the big game that he usually does, but he was enough for the Green Bay Packers to beat decisively the Minnesota Vikings in that division. They just always seem to have the Vikings number. I think this proved a lot of people wrong about Aaron Rodgers, that he's still one of the most elite quarterbacks in this league. I think he's still going to be the quarterback there for another 4 or 5 years. I think Jordan Love will definitely learn a lot under Aaron Rodgers, and once he gets the start, he will be ready to go, much like what we saw in Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. You're going to see that with Rodgers to Love. It's going to take some time, though. And for all the people that are saying they have no wide receivers, Devontae Adams can stay healthy. I'm actually a big fan of Allen Lazard and Valdez-Scantling. They bring a lot to the table. And alongside Devontae Adams, they don't need to be the number 1 guy. They don't need to do everything on the field. As long as you can rely on those guys together and base your offense around Aaron Jones, Aaron Rodgers is going to have a field day with any one of these defenses, because he's going to be the second reason why this offense succeeds. Aaron Jones is an elite running back. He is putting up the numbers. No one really talks about him. He's underrated as all hell, in my opinion. And Aaron Rodgers can feed off of that energy and feed off that success in the running game with these wide receivers. Doesn't really need a tight end, in my opinion, but he'll make it work. And that defense is really good in Green Bay. No one gives them credit. They are really good defensively. Matt LaFleur, great things in the second season of Green Bay. I think they are one of the top contenders in this NFC. And it's because of Aaron Jones / Aaron Rodgers. If he can continue that against I guess you can say that the defense in Minnesota isn't as good as it was last year. They did get rid of a lot of their guys from last year. Everson Griffin, Daniel Hunter was on the IR. Andrew Sendejo's not there anymore. Xavier Rhodes, so it's a growing / molding defense that needs time to improve. But he took care of business. Aaron Rodgers did. So his arm looked really good as well. Lastly, for the arms, Lamar Jackson. Look, man, you got to be impressed by this guy. For all the talk about, he's just a running quarterback, he's going to use his legs and that running game. They were one of the worst teams in passing last year. Mark Andrews was their leading receiver, but they were 28th, 29th the entire year in the NFL as far as passing game. So I think with the group that they have there, which actually improved on the rushing side with J.K. Dobbins, Mark Ingram as well, you're going to use the legs no matter what if you're Lamar Jackson. But to me, you're not utilizing that passing game enough. Mark Andrews really had a solid game against the Browns on Sunday. Hollywood Brown really showed up as well, kind of similar to what we saw last year in Week 1 against the Miami Dolphins. He actually put up 4 touchdowns as well in that game. So I'm waiting for this Lamar Jackson to be more balanced. I love what he does with his feet. His legs, his running game is undoubtedly his best part as a quarterback. But what I saw on Sunday against that Cleveland Browns defense that not a lot of people look into, but they can rush the quarterback, and once they get those guys healthy in the secondary, Grant Delpit, I think this defense can really do wonders in that AFC. But for now, they're growing, they're banged up. Lamar Jackson just really took care of business and showed no doubt of a slump after the MVP year. 275 yards passing, I want to say 75 yards rushing around that range, and 3 touchdowns in the air. He really proved they can utilize Hollywood Brown. They can utilize Mark Andrews. They actually got rid of Hayden Hurst too, which could hurt them. But in the long term, Mark Andrews is their guy at tight end. And I see J.K. Dobbins used in the backfield as a passer, as a rusher. They can use him in so many different ways. But the confidence that Lamar Jackson had in his arm on Sunday, man, I think they deserve more than a little bit of the bubbly. But for now, in Week 1, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, Big Ben, you deserve.
Oh, a little bit of the bubbly.
The final winner of this week that's getting a little bit of the bubbly in Week 1 of the NFL, and it was very early on in the season to start off this week, Clyde Edwards-Helaire from the Kansas City Chiefs as a first-round draft pick after Damian Williams opts out due to COVID. It was really up to Helaire to come out of college, out of LSU, really prove people wrong. And I will say, I was kind of hesitant to believe that Helaire will be a significant upgrade from Damian Williams. I think his talent, his agility, athleticism is undoubtedly better than Damian Williams, but how would it fit into this offense that is pass-heavy with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes? In a game against the Houston Texans to start off the year, I think he can change this whole offense. I'm not overreacting here, but we might actually see a balanced offense in Kansas City. Crazy, right? You're thinking of a pass-heavy Andy Reid throughout his entire career, a pass-heavy, friendly quarterback in Patrick Mahomes that can do it all, and he did it last year. But I think the Super Bowl actually proved that this team can only get better. Like, their defense is elite. Their defense is top 5 in the league, in my opinion. They are so underrated. They only got better as well. But Tyrann Mathieu and that defensive front is incredible, in my opinion. And then you look at the other side of the ball, where you have Patrick Mahomes, of course, Travis Kelce, Hardman, Watkins, Hill, who didn't even play their best games on Thursday. They were a little bit rusty to start it off, and then they found their rhythm late in that game. And by the time it was Deshaun Watson to show up, it was too late. They were down too early, and those garbage time touchdowns, look good on fantasy, but overall this game really didn't matter after the third quarter. And a lot of that had to do with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Helaire just brought a different look to that offense, to where now Patrick Mahomes doesn't have to do everything. If you look at Patrick Mahomes' stats, 211 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. That's a sleeper game. That's a bad day for Patrick Mahomes, if you really think about it. It's a casual day for Patrick Mahomes. Usually you see at least 300 yards. At least. I would expect 400 for the amount of weapons that he has in this offense. 3 touchdowns, pretty similar. But look at Clyde's stats. 25 attempts. That's the most shocking of them all. Andy Reid actually went to the ground game 25 times in this game. And he didn't really have to toward the end. And those second teamers just, had their chance. but 25 attempts, 138 yards, and a touchdown. You can use him as a passer. You can use him in the running game. He just looked agile. He looked like he fit into this offense. He's been there for years. A great offensive line that actually can show some things off rather than Patrick Mahomes, rotating out of that pocket, getting outside. They can actually show that offensive line is good in Kansas City. But Edwards-Helaire, man, he's going to be great in fantasy if he continues this. But the balance that he can bring to this offense is going to be scary for any defense that goes up against Kansas City. When you think about it, you got to worry about Patrick Mahomes in that passing game, no matter what. So you got to go with the cover 3, cover 4. You got to have corners out there. But that leaves less guys in the box to stop that running game, and that gives more holes, more time for Helaire to find that hole, to find the gap, and to use his athleticism to get free. He can break some tackles. He's got the speed. Edwards-Helaire could be the next sensation in running backs in the NFL. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire coming in hot from LSU as a national champion and could be a champion very soon in the NFL. You deserve.
Oh, a little bit of the bubbly.
Yes, sir. Honorable mention. I'll leave it up to one every time. I'm really impressed by the Carolina Panthers. You know I'm a fan of them. I know they are in rebuilding mode. They got rid of Ron Rivera. They went with Matt Rule. Joe Brady out of LSU is their offensive coordinator. They got Teddy Bridgewater from New Orleans. I'm a big fan of Teddy Bridgewater. I think he's perfect for the system. And, of course, they got Christian McCaffrey. Look, they did lose the game against the Las Vegas Raiders. Las Vegas Raiders actually kept up in that game, and they showed that they're legit. Derek Carr is legit. Their wide receivers, their threats. Josh Jacobs is definitely legit. Their defense, well, let's see. Let's see what happens. But Carolina puts up 30 on the board with Teddy Bridgewater, Christian McCaffrey, and those wide receivers, they're actually pretty threatening. They're fast, they're agile, they're young. They're young. So give this offense some time to grow. They can score 30 every game, in my opinion. Their defense is what they're lacking. They could not stop the run against Josh Jacobs, especially on the inside. They got Derek Brown. They need more. Definitely have some room to grow on defense, and they need time. It's going to take more than a season for me for that defense to really get it going. For right now, though, 30 points in a close loss against the Raiders. I like it. I like what I'm seeing so far. It's a good rebuild, like how it's going in Washington as well. It's a good rebuild, so give this time to grow. Teddy Bridgewater could put up good numbers. Christian McCaffrey will continue to put up good numbers. Improve that offensive line. Improve that defensive line, most importantly. I think in a year or so, we're not going to think of Carolina as that fourth team in the NFC South. They can compete against the Atlanta Falcons. And right when Drew Brees and Tom Brady are out of there, you could see it. You could see a very competitive NFC South in a year or two with this Carolina Panthers team. So honorable mention. He don't get the bubbly yet. Carolina Panthers. Let's get to some losers, ladies and gentlemen. And oh man, oof. It's a rough week one. I was gonna put Gostkowski in there, but unfortunately he made the game winner, so I guess he gets a pass. Our first loser. And it's tough to say because I drafted him in fantasy and I was a big fan of him out of college. I loved his film. And it was going so well. But the last 11 seconds of this game put him on this list. Out of Detroit, DeAndre Swift. Like I said, it started off so well for him. Scored his first touchdown in the league in a committee running back core. Adrian Peterson, Kerryon Johnson, and now DeAndre Swift. I was thinking, hey, if he finishes off this week really well, I think DeAndre Swift could lead the pack alongside Adrian Peterson. And down 23-27 with 11 seconds to go against the Chicago Bears. Mind you, Mitchell Trubisky actually showed up. Not a winner yet, but we'll see. Down 23-27 with 11 seconds to go. A beautiful pass by Matthew Stafford. DeAndre Swift actually beats his man. He breaks free, does a wheel route of some sort, gets past the linebacker that's matched up against him, has a pocket wide open in the end zone. It's a perfect pass by Matthew Stafford. He rotated his hips. He got to the ball, looked at it. He had plenty of time to catch it. Drops the game winner against the Chicago Bears. Reports say that that was the sound coming out of the showers in the Detroit Lions locker room, and it looks like DeAndre Swift was the only one in the showers. I'm kidding. But you feel for the guy. So much anticipation him out of college alongside Edwards-Helaire, and you could say that Swift was the more pro-ready and more athletic running back compared to Helaire. And like I said, he looked good. He looked good from the first 4 quarters and 14 minutes and 42 seconds, 43 seconds. It looked good. And yet that one pass, that one play is going to cost him, in my opinion, a lot of playing time this year. It's got to hurt his chances in that committee to get more snaps with the first team. Because right now, with the performance that Adrian Peterson had, just under 100 yards, he looked good for being 58 years old. Kerryon Johnson was really good last year and is a solid number 2 in this offense. And then Swift had to impress in his first game in the NFL. He was doing that until the final play. And for him to drop that pass decided whether the Lions were going to go 1-0, 0-1 against a scrappy Chicago Bears team that stayed in that game. This really could have done something for the Detroit Lions because I think Matt Patricia is a good coach for that system. They are defensive-minded, going with Jeff Okudah in the draft. They have good defensive players. They've always been a stat-heavy offense, but can never get it done execution-wise down the stretch. They lost a lot of their games by less than a touchdown last year. You needed to catch that ball. You needed to, and you didn't. So DeAndre Swift, I played it once. I'll play it again. I'm sorry, buddy. It hurts. It really does, because I had you in fantasy. I was going to start you, but I just had I had a hinge about J.K. Dobbins, but I might have to let you go. I'm sorry. It's week 1. I'm not overreacting, but you might not get the snaps this week. Number 2 on the losers list, the whole New York Jets organization. Dear God, there are so many things that we can talk about in that loss against the Buffalo Bills. The score looked closer than it looked. Well, if you watch the game, it was not good. I don't think a lot of people watch that game because who wants to watch the Jets anymore? Frank Gore had more rushing yards than Le'Veon Bell, which is not what you want if you're Frank Gore and Le'Veon Bell, who you spent a lot of money on, and you want to put so much focus on the offense on. You had 5 consecutive drives to start off the game with no points. It was a punt, interception, and then you go into the second half, or actually you go into late in the second quarter, and you actually put some points on the board. But it's only 3 points, so you spend 30 minutes of a game only scoring 3 points. You just can't do that with Le'Veon Bell, with an improved wide receiver core, with Sam Darnold that's supposedly supposed to be better this year. I don't know about the Jets. I think Sam Darnold is a bust from what I see against better competition, let's say like the New England Patriots or against the Buffalo Bills. I'm not seeing a guy that's progressing. I'm seeing a guy that's regressing. And that's not what you want out of a third-year guy of Sam Darnold, who's supposed to be the best quarterback coming out of that draft a few years ago. I'm willing to give Baker Mayfield another chance, another year to improve. I'm just not able to do that with Sam Darnold. And if I'm not seeing an improving guy each and every week against improved competition in that division, I'm going to give up on Sam Darnold after this year. That offensive line They went with Mekhi Becton, who is a great offensive lineman, but still needs time to improve. He definitely needs to learn the position a lot more. Coming out of Louisville, his athleticism, his freak of nature athleticism is unlike any other in that position. But the guy needs to learn. He needs to learn, and I think to just put him out there from the very beginning is not the best decision with an offensive line that definitely needs more depth and more veteranship. So all the aspects of their offense needs improvement. Their defense is nowhere to be seen. Jamal Adams was the only positive from their defense last year. Now he's gone. He's looking good in Seattle. What's the positive you can say, and what's the optimism you can put on this New York Jets team that says maybe they can do something this year? I'm saying that New England looks good. I'm saying Miami can bounce back. I'm saying that Buffalo looks good. They're the odd man out. The Jets are the odd man out, and it doesn't look like in the next 2 or 3 years they can do anything about that. So, New York, I mean, you both had losses this week. But the Jets, you're just a walking L. So, yes, you deserve. That's just pain right there. Number 3 on the list, as we finish it off, Phillip Rivers. I didn't like him in LA/San Diego. I don't like him in Indianapolis. And even during the broadcast against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are a wild card in that AFC South, Gardner Minshew is hit or miss. But Gardner Minshew looked like the better quarterback. Phillip Rivers looked frantic, looked like the same old decision-making mistake guy who throws interceptions down the stretch, and that's exactly what happened on Sunday. If you watch the broadcast, if you watch the game, the commentators talked about how he was brought in to bring experience and veteranship to that quarterback position that they lacked with Jacoby Brissett. Granted, Jacoby Brissett, for me, was actually impressive last year for what he did with a rebuilding of some sort offense. You know, I like the Colts. I think the Colts can actually impress some people in the AFC South, and I really think they can win the division because they are, out of every team, the more complete football team. Houston, they have no defense, and it showed on Thursday night against the Kansas City Chiefs. Jacksonville Jaguars are a wild card, so you never know what team's going to show up each week. And their defense, C.J. Henderson got banged up, I think, with his hamstring, and they're regrowing on that defense. It'll take some time, but I think they can get back to their old ways. And Tennessee, I don't know. I'm just not fully invested in Tennessee. I like Mike Vrabel. Their offense showed what they're going to be this year last night against the Denver Broncos. Like, they're going to be scrappy. They're going to be very competitive, and they're going to keep it tight in the game. And it's up to their kicking game to really do a lot of the work, and it showed last night. But if Derrick Henry does not have 150 yards per game, then it's hard for Ryan Tannehill and this stacked wide receiver core to get the ball rolling, to get that rhythm going. So I think out of every team, the more confidence that I have is in the Indianapolis Colts. But the only thing that is holding me back from saying this is a Super Bowl contending team, or at least a deep playoff run team, is Phillip Rivers. I did not like the move at all for him to go to Indianapolis. And this is the reason why. You watch those games against the Kansas City Chiefs last year. You watch those games in like Mexico City or in those tight games where he's throwing interception after interception. And in a game where you're only down 4 and you have 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, so you can take your time. You can definitely run down the clock and use that running game that was having success all game long in Hines and Jonathan Taylor. And Marlon Mack's out for the rest of the year, so you're up to those guys, but they're good enough. And Paris Campbell looked good. T.Y. Hilton looks good. Man, I like what they're doing in Indianapolis. Of course, their offensive line's gotten better. And you wish Andrew Luck was leading the way, but it comes down to if you want Jacoby Brissett or Phillip Rivers. And right now, if you gave me the choice, if you put a gun to my head, I'm taking Jacoby Brissett. Because Phillip Rivers looked frantic in that drive with 7 minutes to go, leading to an interception on third down. and it led to a Jaguars field goal. It put them in a tougher situation where they need to score a touchdown. They could not do so. And I'm back to where I started. Phillip Rivers isn't the answer, and I don't know why nobody notices it. He's a Hall of Famer in a lot of people's eyes. He's a veteran. He's experienced, but there's a reason why San Diego could not get the job done in that division or in the AFC for so many years. They were stacked. They were the most talented team out of any team in the AFC, in my opinion, for the last few years. You know, Anthony Lynn took over, and I'm like, great. They have Derwin James. They have Bosa. They have Gordon. They have Eckler. They have Keenan Allen. The list goes on and on of what they have in LA. But for some reason, nothing clicked. And I think Phillip Rivers is the reason why. So if you're looking at this Colts team and you're wondering in week 8, week 10, why hasn't it clicked? And why haven't they taken control of this division? Look at Phillip Rivers. And I tell you, that is the reason why. Phillip Rivers. That should describe his last 5 years in the league. Lastly, the final loser and the biggest loser of all, in my opinion. The Kansas City Chiefs crowd on Thursday night. It had nothing to do with them during the game, not after the game, or the fact that they're dealing with the COVID situation. It had nothing to do with that. I think having a limited capacity for the amount of fans in the building is perfect. Slow but steady, and we'll get to a point where we can get everyone back. But until then, it's what we have to deal with. So just to allow fans in Kansas City, a little bit of a risk, but I think they did the job well. You have to wear a mask. You have to be in your own little bubble in the stands. But what my problem is with the Kansas City Chiefs crowd is what they did prior to this game. And this is where we get a little bit serious, because during the national anthem, yes, there were a few players that knelt. That kneeled, excuse me. And that is fine. Because we all should understand by now that it has nothing to do with the national anthem. It has nothing to do with our respect for this country. I speak for every single player that is kneeling during the national anthem. And I hope that I do a good enough job of doing this. Obviously, I don't have the audience. I don't have the, I guess you can say, the outreach or outlook that a lot of these analysts and reporters have on national television. But I speak for all these guys. When you have a national anthem and a country that is based on unity, that is based on one nation under God, unified and equal, how can you say that you can represent that and really respect that in a way to where you're standing during the national anthem, put your hand above your heart, when there are victims of police brutality, social injustice going around every day in this country still. And my only problem with this is that kneeling only goes so far. These protests, these messages of putting a name on the back of the helmet, they can only go so far, but it's really what we do as a community will make a difference. It's what the NBA bubble and the NBA in general has done, in my opinion, that it has done a lot of great things. Because they actually boycott playing some games. They actually did not just the kneeling or the protest. They boycotted and said, until it gets better, we will not play basketball. And those victims in Kenosha, in Aurora, and everywhere around the country, really, because it's not just one place. It's around every state and every part of the country, where we're having these victims and these social injustices take over, and yet we're just supposed to ignore them because we want to watch football. And anyone that's offended by the kneeling doesn't get that. They don't understand that it's, how can you stand for a national anthem and for a country that doesn't have your back? When you have African Americans that are scared to be stopped by the cops on like a regular traffic stop, or they're not even safe in their own homes. Breonna Taylor, these examples are so disgusting and ugly to think about, but they happen, and we got to think about that. So if you're offended by that and are so disgusted by the fact that they are protesting that, then you don't really understand. But to go even lengths farther, to where after the national anthem, the entire Houston Texans and Kansas City Chiefs roster, coaches, staff, all came together at midfield and lined up together, unified, and said, we're going to stand together and we're going to be one team. We're going to be one nation, and we're going to get through this together. No kneeling, not during the national anthem. It was after. And they just showed a message of, like, we can do this. We can do this together. And what the Kansas City Chiefs crowd did was boo them. Boo them when they're not even showing a protest. They're just trying to spread a message of positivity and love. And they boo that. They should be ashamed of themselves. And anybody that doesn't find that offensive or finds nothing wrong with that, you should be ashamed of yourselves as well. So how can we move on and get better as a country, as a nation, when you're still offended by the kneeling, when you're even more offended to the point to where you can boo hundreds of players, a lot of them African American, coaching staffs that are trying to set the right tone and the right message, and yet you boo that. You don't even get Stephen A. Smith. You don't get anything. You get a big old L on your forehead for anybody that thinks that that's okay for them to boo. So, Kansas City Chiefs crowd, you're the biggest loser of them all. In week 1, we found the biggest loser of the season, and you're worse than the Jets. Come on, man. Man. I just need to get that off my chest, because when I saw that, I was disgusted. And I hope that a lot of you that watch this or listen to this are disgusted as well and want to make a difference. Want to bring positive change to this country, because that's not the right way to do it. Those players did the right thing. Those players are doing their best. They are giving out the great message, a positive message, and all they get is hate. And that's what's wrong with this country. So I'm going to leave it at that. Winners and losers of week 1 is in the books, ladies and gentlemen. And I hope that you enjoyed this, because there's a lot more to come. Every week we're going to do this. I will most likely do this by myself, maybe an occasional guest. But I think this was an extreme success. I think we all deserve.
Oh, a little bit of the bubbly.
Yes, we do. We got through week 1. Now 15 more weeks to go. And if you're a Cowboys fan, strap up. Jesus Christ. I know that losers, I should put the Cowboys in there, but I already talked enough crap about them in yesterday's episode. So that will do it for this episode of the Bubba Lutz Sports Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this. And please leave a like, subscribe, follow, leave a review, all that good stuff. If you actually like to be a part of the Bubba Bunch even further, you can subscribe and be a member and support this podcast for $1, $5, $10 a month. I will put that in the description down below on all platforms. Please support me. I want to do this for a living, and I hope that as we go along, we only get bigger and bigger for the right reasons, and we do that in the right way. The journey is the best part, and this is the journey so far. So thank you again, and we will see you next time on the Bubba Lutz Sports Podcast.
Yeah, hold on. Tell me who's your top 5 quarterbacks right now, dead or alive, huh? And how much do you care about a ring if the best player got carried by the team? Now would you lose if it been a better draft pick? And do you cuss when your team get their ass kicked? Now do you keep it classy or you keep it ratchet?